This is the Fusion Factor.
Hello, my name is Justin Oldham, and I am the author of Bibix, which is a science fiction novel that features a great deal of alien psychology. For the next 10 minutes, I'll tell you what this is and why it was such a difficult book to write. Few things are harder in the genre of science fiction than the portrayal of alien psychology. I discovered this for myself in the winter of 2010 when I started work on Bibix. Now, the truth of the matter is that I really don't have anything to complain about because I was actually starting from the framework of a short story that I had written in 2010, so I had a basis to work from. As anyone who has ever done this will tell you, expanding a short story into a full-length novel is not as easy as it sounds. Now, of course, I wasn't doing myself any favors by crafting a complicated storyline to begin with. Now, to put this in a nutshell for you, the lapropods are the accidental invaders of Earth. They are fleeing from their dying world, and 13 billion of them show up on our doorstep all at once. Now, high-tech or low-tech, if 13 billion space travelers showed up in orbit around planet Earth right now, we'd be toast. We would simply be overwhelmed. Emergency services, social services, laundry services would all crash with the sudden arrival of these people, or in this particular case, lapropods, and that is essentially what happened. And the human survivors were trying to cope when all of a sudden the hideous and militaristic Norcons arrive on the scene to put the icing on the cake. And so now, all of a sudden, the lapropods and the humans are both under the same martial boot. And now it is up to two unlikely heroes who don't particularly care for each other to put their differences aside and figure out how to defeat their common opponent. Now, as good as that sounds, it is particularly difficult to write as an action-adventure thing when you have to account for the fact that A, your hero and central character is not human, and B, your hero and central character who is not human happens to have a very non-human method of thinking. I know what I just said was grammatically incorrect, but I'm trying to get your attention to drive the point home. There is a certain temptation when you're writing science fiction to make your aliens very human so that it's easy to relate to them. And I didn't want to do that. I am something of an armchair student of psychology. So when I set about the initial character sketches, when I was trying to figure out how I would narrate the lapropod psychology, I went out of my way to do some reading, Jung, Freud, all of the great classical thinkers, so that I could model something that would look, sound, read like something that did not come from this world. Now, did I succeed? Ultimately, you have to decide for yourself. That's the thing about the marketplace. People buy the book, they read it. If they like it, they say good things in the reviews. If they don't like it, they say bad things in the reviews, and then I starve. So we see what happens. All I can tell you, as the guy who wrote it, is that this was no slapdash effort. I think I must have put 3 to 4 months worth of book reading research into this.
This program is brought to you by ShadowFusionBooks.com.
It is a commonly used tactic in science fiction to employ aliens as stand-ins for people so that the author can feel a bit more at ease when writing about very uncomfortable subjects. In this particular case, I did actually want to challenge myself with the portrayal of something that was genuinely alien. So I settled on the proposition that one of the most alien things that there ever could be to the human species would be the idea that an intelligent race could evolve, thrive, and live somewhere without predators. I mean, here on planet Earth, human beings have been something's food since the beginning of time. Even today, in 21st century modern America, I live in Alaska. I live in a place where bears and wolves think of me as dinner. I could be out in the wilderness somewhere with a .357 Magnum handgun on my hip, and the grizzly bear does not care. Now, he may not care if I have a gun or not, so that means I got to care about where he is and what he's doing. So I have to be mindful of my place in the food chain. So I asked myself, from the researcher's point of view, what sort of psychology would prevail in a society in which the population had never known predators? Now, there are aspects of lapropod life which mirror our own. I have been told by a number of people who have taken the time to send email to me that Bibix's mother comes off as being uncannily Jewish. The funny thing is, some people have written to me to say that Bibix comes off as being very British or very Eastern European. I even got an email from somebody telling me that Bibix is eminently Turkish. All I can say is that I'm glad that so many people find ways to relate to Bibix as a character. I myself found him a little bit hard to get along with for about the first 8 chapters of the book. After that, I started to finally... I got him. I finally started to understand where he was coming from, and that may strike you as funny because I'm the guy who wrote it, but all I can tell you is that this is just chalked up to the difficulty of portraying alien psychology. Lapropods, as it turns out, do have a certain degree of groupthink, but beyond that, they are very stylized individuals. They have a high regard in their society for the aged. People who have been around for a long time have a certain degree of status in their society. Their families, as it turns out, are somewhat Asian. They have multiple generations living under one roof, and they like it. Now, some of you who have written to me, you have pointed out that Bibix spends a great deal of his time being miserable, and that's quite true, because he does not like what he has to do. Yes, he has set himself the chore of being the liberator of his people, but deep down inside, he is an academic. He's a museum curator. He would rather be doing other things. Instead, he is cold and hungry, and people are trying to kill him, and most people don't actually think of that as a lot of fun. The big lapropod hang-up is their inability to wrap their brains around the concept of violence. On the one hand, they don't like being subjugated by the Norcons, and on the other hand, they don't like the idea of actually being militant. Human beings, if we don't like something, we get up and walk away, and if somebody won't let us walk away, then we'll just damn near kill them if it's necessary in order for us to stop the misery. But as I visualized this, I realized that if people had grown up in a place where they had no history of violence, that they might not even have words for those things in their own culture, which would mean that even if they could intellectualize it, it would be very difficult for them to break down and do unless they were truly, genuinely forced. And that, in just 10 minutes flat, is why this book was so hard for me to write.
You've been listening to The Fusion Factor, brought to you by Shadow Fusion Books. Find us online at shadowfusionbook.com.